Hey, what's going on, guys? Brian from Zombie Guitar here. Here in this lesson, I'm going to give you what I consider to be the secret of melodic guitar playing, okay? Or more specifically, how you might go about creating a catchy melody line on the guitar that is going to catch the listener's ear. Alright, so if you've watched a lot of my other lessons on here, you'll know that I'm constantly talking about the importance of connecting the chord tones of the underlying chords to the overall key scale. Okay, I have tons of lessons on that. Below in the description I will post links to any and all relevant lessons that pertain to this lesson. But knowing that theory is one thing, and then actually being able to apply it in order to create a catchy melody line that makes that connection is another thing. Alright? Now, the secret was given to me by an old friend of mine a long time ago, and it's stuck with me. And essentially, it is to study vocalists. Alright, so listen to what vocalists are doing. Listen to what the singers are doing in songs. Okay, so every song has, most songs that you hear on the radio is in just one key, okay? And within that key, there's a chord progression going on. And the vocal line that's going over top of that chord progression is the melody line, okay? And the melody line is what it's doing. It's connecting the chord tones to the underlying key scale, okay? Only they're doing it with their voice and they're not doing it with the guitar. So if you essentially study what singers are doing, you figure out how, what a singer is singing, figure out their actual notes, figure out what they're doing, and play it on the guitar over top of that chord progression that they're singing over, you're going to see that 99.9% of the time they are connecting the chord tones of the underlying chords to the overall key scale. Okay? Only they're doing it in a way that most guitar players wouldn't think of. Most guitar players tend to think in terms of scales and not so much melody lines, whereas vocalists, whether they're doing it intentionally or not, they're thinking in terms of melody lines, okay? And a melody line just naturally makes that connection, okay? So I'm going to walk you through an example using, what I consider to be like a nice melodic chorus from it's the Kinks' Rock and Roll Fantasy. So Rock and Roll Fantasy by the Kinks, the chorus of that. Okay, it's in the key of F major. The chord progression that's being soloed over is a C major chord to a B flat major chord to an F major chord. Okay, that's a 5-4-1 progression in the key of F major. So I'm just going to show you how you might go about figuring out the melody line within a little area over top of that chord progression, and then how you might go about embellishing upon that to create, a guitar solo out of that. All right. So I have that chord progression stored in my looper, and it sounds like this. Okay, C flat or C major to B flat to F major. Alright, now to figure out your key scale, we're just going to do it in just one area for this lesson. I'm going to find my home box, okay? The home box is pentatonic position number 1, alright? So you find your home box major scale for a major key by taking your pinky and you locate the root on the low E string. Okay, so this is the key of F major, so I'm going to find my F on the low E string. I have an F up here, 13th fret, so this is my F major scale right here. Alright, so I could just play the F major scale over top of this chord progression up and down in any random order, and it's going to work because it's the key of F major. Okay, so that's generally how us guitar players think. We think, okay, this is in the key of F major, let me just play the F major scale over top of the chord progression. Alright, so the next step would be you want to locate your chord shapes within this particular pattern, okay? So, over time you want to be able to do this up and down the whole entire neck of the guitar, but, just starting out, focus on one area at a time, okay? So you have the first chord, which is your C major. So in this area, you have your C major chord in the D shape, okay? So know your caged system, link to that lesson is going to be below as well. So here's your C major chord in the D shape. Okay, then you have a B flat major chord in the C shape. And then you have your F major chord in the G shape. Okay, so you could just kind of outline those chord shapes, and that would be your first step. Okay, so you have your chord shapes there. So, how to create a melody line out of that? Well, what's the vocalist doing? So let's hear what the vocalist is doing. Okay, so you see how that was a melody line now? So that's something that you probably wouldn't have thought of on your own as a guitar player, okay? Maybe you would have, but, you know, that's just a really nice melodic flowing line, and it's an excellent example of connecting the chords to the overall scale, okay? Because what's going on there is the singer is singing notes that work, and the notes that work are the chord tones of the underlying chords within the scale, okay? The singer's just doing it in a way that makes sense to him in his head, okay? So he's singing the melody line in his head, and the melody line in his head is that connection, okay? So you can embellish upon this idea by, number one, keeping this vocal melody line in your head, but also adding in additional scale tones to allow you to walk from one chord tone to the next chord tone, and also having, you know, like keeping this visual idea of these triad shapes or these cage shapes within this pattern in mind, okay, as the chords are occurring. So to do something like this, it's very helpful to have a looper pedal. I'm constantly using my looper pedal at all times, and you know, I'll sit here and I'll just solo over top of this progression or whatever progression I happen to be studying. I'll just sit there and solo over it for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, a half hour straight, and I'll just try and come up with all kinds of melodic ideas. And you know, but the overall basic thing is keeping that vocal melody line in mind at all times. So basically, I'm just going to go about, you know, I'm just going to solo over this, and I'm going to embellish it. I'm going to play more than just the vocal line, but you're going to hear how the vocal line is the primary thing that's going on, all right? So something like that. That's basically, you know, just keeping that overall melody line in mind while also adding in some extra scale tones because you know what the overall key scale is, and also keeping in mind what the chords are, okay? So keeping those chord shapes that are within this little area in mind as well. So you're basically keeping three things in your mind simultaneously, which may be kind of difficult, but, you know, if you have a loop, you know, use a looper pedal, use a backing track on a computer that allows you to loop progressions over, just play over and over, you know, these things starts to all click, okay? But the main point that I'm trying to get across in this lesson is the overall melody line. That's the main thing. The overall melody line is the catchy part, the part that the listener hears, and you develop that skill by simply studying vocalists. All right, so I didn't come up with that melody line myself. That's just what the vocalist, I don't know what the lead singer's name of the Kinks is, but that's what the lead singer of the Kinks came up with, and I just applied his vocal line, translated it to the guitar, figured out what the key scale was, figured out what the chord shapes were within a little area of the key scale, and then figured out how he went about connecting the chord tones to the overall key scale. All right, so the more you do this, the more vocalists that you study, the more songs that you study their vocal lines and play those vocal lines on the guitar over top of a looped chord progression, the better you will get at this skill. Okay, so in my opinion, that is the secret to melodic guitar playing. Other people may have other secrets of their own, but that's what I think is the secret. All right, so that's enough for this lesson. Any questions, comments, feel free to hit me up, and I'll do my best to get back to you. All right, thanks a lot.